Welcome back, guys. It's Danny Glover from Fight Fan TV Live. It's the neutral corner. And we've got a guest today, none other than Off the Canvas. You know where it is.
Come on, bro.
How's it
Appreciate
going?
being here, man. I'm good, man. I'm really good, man. And yeah, man, just had to pull through for the brother. So yeah.
Yeah, man, it was a bit of a nightmare one today, but my boy Off the Canvas, he came in, saved the day, like the sixth man in basketball, NBA Jam, boom shakalaka.
Come on, man.
So yeah, man.
Somali Superman. Let's go.
Yeah, he's been on that spaghetti and banana. But yeah, no, what I will say, your ascendancy this year, you've been in, I don't know what kind of strength and conditioning coach you've got, but this new guy is amazing. I love your channel, what you're doing when you're going on to other platforms, especially when you're on Undefeated Podcasts. You were like, do you know the Iron Mike Tyson story?
Yeah.
Do you know his story?
Not in detail, but briefly.
No, but do you know how he became a savage?
Oh yeah, that jail story came out.
No, when he was a kid.
No.
So he used to get bullied, as a kid. And then someone ripped, he used to fly them pigeons and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And someone from his hood, obviously, remember he's from Brooklyn, ripped one of his pigeons' head off. And that just turned the switch in him. And he just broke up the bread. And from then, he's just been a savage since before. Because you know how he used to speak and cry and be quite emotional. But from that just turned the switch in him. And from then, he become just a savage and a roadman.
I didn't know that. I knew Ali's story and how he got into boxing, but not Mike Tyson's one.
Yeah, Ali's one. Yeah, someone stole his bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Mike Tyson's story. And with you, remember they used to try and call you, what's it, Southern area? What was the other names there?
Oh, bruv, on the canvas, under the canvas.
Yeah.
Bruv.
But this now, you've turned into Iron Mike and you are just icing guys, which I just love.
To me, man.
But yeah, man, it's been it's not been so much boxing this weekend, but there's a lot of news to go for. But did you watch this week's fights?
I just watched Joyce versus Christian Hamer. I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it Hamer or is it Hammer?
They say Hamer, but it's spelled Hammer to me, so we just call him Hammer.
Yeah, we roll with Hammer, bro. Watch that fight.
What's your thoughts on it?
Honestly, first and foremost, why is Joyce going in the ring with Christian Hammer to begin with? Because Joyce is considered a top 10 opponent. A lot of people would even put Christian Hammer in their top 20.
No.
So the matchmaker for that fight, I'm not too keen on, but he's been out there for a considerable amount of time.
About a year, I heard.
Yeah, and his last fight was Carlos Takam. Why was he in the ring really with Carlos Takam? Like, these are some of the questions that I want to get answered. And for me, Joyce is 36, 37 years old?
37, I believe.
He's not got a lot of time left on the clock. In fact, he should be on this Chisora thing, trying to get the biggest fight as soon as possible. He's on this, like I'm a young fighter. Like, if you going by his recent fights, you would have thought he was about Dubois' age.
Yeah.
Really and truly. You would have thought these are all learning fights. Or like, he will try to make adjustments and improvements in his next couple of fights so that he'll be ready for a world title. This guy is 36, 37 years of age. This guy should be, literally, you should roll the dice with him. And then,
What happens where the chips fall? But what I will say is, remember, he was scheduled to fight Joseph Parker. But then
that story.
Yeah, that story is a bit nuts because then all of a sudden there was an injury, which seems quite dubious. And then Parker signed with Boxer. So
it wasn't, do you know what? It wasn't an injury. I think it was Joseph Parker or Andy Lee. His missus was going to give birth on the week or scheduled to give birth on the week of the fight that they were going to take place. And they wanted to move it for an extra 2-3 months. Following up from that, he then signed with Boxer. And for me, I don't see, for Joseph Parker, for a guy who's just 30 or about, I think he's just a bit under 30.
He's 30.
Yeah, he's 30 years of age. And he wants to get in those big fights. Signing with Boxer for me, where once you sign with them, you are now the best boxer or heavyweight boxer on their platform, to me makes no sense. Because if I was him, I would have stayed with Eddie Hearn and being patient. You see, sometimes the grass isn't green on the other side. Sometimes, and it's really with Joseph Parker. Currently, with Tyson Fury out in retirement. Yeah, Joe Joyce is currently the best heavyweight on Frank Warren's platform.
Yeah.
So if he wants the best fight, and Frank Warren really is looking like one of those people that don't want to be collaborating with other people, then he's got to move as well. He's got to move to, for me, if you're a heavyweight, it's beneficial to probably go with Eddie. Eddie's got Usyk, Eddie's got Joshua. More than likely, he's got Dillian White, even though it's on a fight-by-fight basis. Those are the top 3, 4, or amongst the top 3, 4 heavyweights in the world.
Yeah.
Or top,
and he's got better, those like, I wouldn't say the underlinks. So better opponents. When you're chief support or on a good card, you've got better heavyweight opponents. Whereas if you're on Boxer, as you said, Joseph Parker's the best heavyweight, but who is his collision course there? There is none.
Hughie Fury.
But he's already beat him. And that was very one-sided as well. Hughie he was on the run like the whole night.
I don't get it from Joseph Parker's standpoint. I don't get why, especially why next, because for me, if I was him, I would be doing everything I can to schedule the Joe Joyce fight, because Joe Joyce is in good. Well, he's ranked quite highly in a lot of governing bodies, and he's number 1 in the WBO. Makes sense for Joseph Parker to fight Joe Joyce. So why would he do things to sabotage that fight and go in a platform where there is not a lot of top-level competition of heavyweights in there, if that makes sense? So it's bizarre. But on Joe Joyce's performance against Christian Hammer, I think Joe Joyce is slowing down.
Yeah.
I think his punch resistance appears to be weakening to an extent, because I think the shots that he was taking against Christian Hammer were affecting him more than the shots he was taking against Dubois, which leads me to believe that over time, gradually his punch resistance has been weakening, and therefore I think he's got to be in the top level. And this is Christian Hammer. I wouldn't say he's extremely powerful.
No.
If Dillian White caps him with that looping shot that Christian Hammer caught him with, I think that it would seriously affect Joe Joyce. Seriously would affect Joe Joyce. So for me,
or if Wilder was to catch him.
What's Wilder doing nowadays? He's
got a hot song for the summer.
Come on.
Afro beats. I actually like the tune, to be fair. Have you heard it?
I've heard it. It's decent.
Yeah.
I think, but one thing that was a bit uncomfortable with was the illustration of the art. Like you had Deontay Wilder. I think Deontay Wilder was I don't know where he was, but you got Marcellus Wilder behind the piano, and Deontay Wilder's wife on top of the piano. Oh, sorry, Deontay Wilder's wife on top of the piano. That to me just seems some weird.
It's a bit too seductive.
Yeah. It's a bit weird, bruv. Yeah.
Talking about sexual activity, have you noticed? Yeah, because you said Andy. The reason why the fight got pulled is because Andy Lee, his wife, was supposed to be giving birth. Callum Smith was meant to fight. What's his name? Arthur Beterbiev, but his woman just gave birth, or he got married or something. Why he didn't take the fight? Then Josh Taylor has now vacated the WBC because I've never heard of these stories before of people not taking fights because of all this pregnancy and marriage.
No, some of them, I'm going to be honest with you, that is the excuse that they pull out from the hat. That's not the real one. The real one is that fight's not making me enough money for me to, push my wedding backwards. And really and truly for me, I don't really want that fight. So what's the best excuse I can use? I'm getting married.
Yeah.
Whereas I guarantee you, if Josh Taylor, for whatever foreseen circumstances, was fighting a prime Floyd Mayweather, would he be...
Or Terence Crawford.
Or Terence Crawford would be turning around saying, I'm getting married. Can we push that fight back? All of those, to me, are excuses as to why you don't want to take that fight. Like, imagine you had a Premier League footballer turning around and saying, "Oh yeah, the reason why I couldn't play in the Champions League final, you know about me and my wife are getting married, so yeah, I couldn't really turn up to that final. So yeah, all the rest of the guys have to hold down the fort." Well, a lot of the fans will be like throwing shade at them.
Yeah.
I think that if boxing wants to be treated as a sport, we have to treat the boxers as sportsmen and women. And if we have to treat them like sportsmen and women, we can't let them effectively pull out of competition for reasons outside of them not being able to compete, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not, of course, for me, those include mental health struggles. I know some people don't like Ryan Garcia pulling out a fight because of that. For me, that is a viable reason as to why you can't fight. I like things like, for example, like I'm getting married, bruv. You are the undisputed, what was it, super lightweight champion, or was it
light welterweight,
yeah, champion of the world, undisputed. So you can't call the wedding venue, get pushed back a couple of months.
Come on, he's got the money to pay the little what do you call it, the little excess fee, like, and lose a deposit. It's not. Come on. And I know many fighters back in the day who missed, and even recent times, missed the birth of their child, because, and their woman understands, because this is for the family's future.
Yeah.
And that is what drives them in the gym, when they're like, I've had to miss the birth of my child, and I've gone in there and I've done, and then from there they just rush to the hospital. The next day you see them, oh yeah, It happens. These are the sacrifices you have to make when you're in the Premier League of boxing.
Yeah. I'm telling you, this is elite level sports. This is the creme de la creme. Like,
yeah, it's Champions League. It's people fighting for Ring Magazine. Purses people will never see in their life. Even if you're not, it's just, you're meant to be trying to achieve your dream. Sometimes you have to make these sacrifices, which will hurt.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
In the long run, your family will understand. Do you know what I mean? So it's mad. But also, did you watch the upset yesterday afternoon? I caught it today. I watched it today. Jai Opetaia, the Samoan Australian, he beat Mairis Briedis.
No, I didn't see that, but I heard about it. I heard about that fight. For me, this is why I'm warming to the idea that of people like, for example, Antilliard risking it and going for world title. If you stay around this sort of zone and start lingering around too long, you could get beat.
Yeah. You
could get beat. And Mairis Briedis could have been a unified champion, or could have been fighting for unification, but with Lawrence Okoli.
Or Makabu.
But opted to fight opetaia, which, to my understanding, I don't even think that was that even a mandatory?
Nah. Not that I know of. I didn't even know about any kind of, there was nothing to talk about mandatory, purse bid, this and that. That was just a random defense.
So ultimately for me, it is a blessing in a way. The reason why I say it's a blessing is because Lawrence Okoli can then unify the division against an opponent that will be more willing to fight Lawrence Okoli. For me, Mairis Briedis, I don't think that he wanted the fight with Okoli, to my understanding. I don't think he wanted the fight with Okoli.
So did you think when he came into on the ring apron in the Mario Brothers suit, do you think that was more of just like a show and tell thing?
I think that he was marketing himself to fight Jake Paul. That's what happened. And
it's real talk.
And to be fair, if you're marketing yourself to fight Jake Paul, that means your priority isn't to become the best boxer or the best version of yourself. Your priority is to make as much money as humanly possible. And Jake Paul is a cruiserweight that probably generates the most money, even though he's not like the best boxer in the world. So it makes sense for both parties, for both Briedis and for Jake Paul, to fight each other, because Jake Paul can fight for world title out the blue, and Briedis can fight for a lot of money. It's a win-win
pension scheme.
For his pension scheme. So I think that was a marketing ploy to fight Jake Paul, and I think he said that as well. I think he was always around that period of time. He was calling out Jake Paul.
Yeah, and he had the tattoo.
The leg. Was it? I don't know if that was real though.
Somebody leave in the comment section. Was it real? Was it fake? Let us know. But that was poor. It was poor.
Grown man.
Yeah, that's someone's dad, you know.
Someone's dad. A grown man has gone out of his way to put a leg tattoo. Where was it? On his thigh?
Yeah.
On his thigh. for a YouTuber. And I'm pretty sure, what is he? Is he married or something? I'm pretty sure.
He's a married man.
So he's got, yeah. To be fair, it did not work. It didn't work. He will probably never fight Jake Paul.
No.
Well, to be fair, it's a mad world, but I do not see him fight Jake Paul unless he's got a world title on his hand. And
now Jake Paul won't be bothered because he's got Tommy Fury, who I actually believe Jake Paul will beat Tommy Fury. But Mairis Briedis is too experienced and too good now with no belt for Jake Paul to bother with him. Now it's just like, I'm doing all this risk, but for nothing. Like, at least before I could say, at least I fought for a world title, even if I get flattened. I'm just a YouTuber who fought for a world title. But whatever. But now it's like, Briedis, you ain't got nothing, so forget it. Now he's fighting Tommy Fury, who does a lot of numbers, got a big profile. So yeah, Briedis ain't getting that fight. He's done. But I will tell you about the fight with Jai Opetaia. Big up debut. Your boy did it. She's Samoan. She's uncle is The Rock. And
swear.
Yeah. So the first half of the fight, and big up to Base the Kid because he gave me the breakdown of the fight before I watched the highlights this morning. So
big up Base as well.
Yeah, big up Base the Kid. Opetaia, he won the first half of the fight. He fights quite like Joseph Parker, you know, but he's a lot faster and more skillful, I think. He kind of even has the same shorts and obviously the same heritage background type thing, the Samoan. Very good boxing skills, counter uppercuts, very fast 1-2s, very got the amateur feet, very springy for a cruiserweight, and he's about 6'2", 6'3", very good boxing skills. He broke Briedis' nose in the second round. Yeah, his nose was still bleeding like when he was in the change room after I was talking. And then in the 8th round, Briedis caught him and broke Opetaia's jaw. And he had to survive that until the 12th. And in the 11th round, Briedis was letting off some serious shots. And as Base the Kid said, because he said it to me, and I hadn't watched it at the time, but then when I did watch it, I agree. The only reason why Opetaia was still standing in the 11th is because of his Samoan genetics. Because you know them man are tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, and then through the 12th, he was like moving and whatever, got through it, and he won on points, 116, 112, them type of scorecards. And Brady says that he wants the rematch, but I think Jai will actually probably beat him even more convincingly this next time on points.
Did they sign a rematch clause?
They probably was, because he's the A side. Briedis is A side, and if you're going to give a man a voluntary, especially on a voluntary, remember mandatories you don't really tend to get rematch, but the voluntary you're doing him a favor. So if you manage to, in his eyes, if you manage to pull off this fluke because it was an upset, then yeah, the rematch clause is going to be in there. And then Jai's 22-0, 17 KOs now. So and yeah, he was a youth. World youth bronze medalist. He represented Australia in the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games. So he's a very decorated amateur. That's another thing I keep saying. This amateur pedigree is very important when you're going to world level. And yeah, he shocked the world. I seen him fight a couple of times, blow over like any journeyman though, like these guys 7-2. So that was a massive step up. I was surprised he won. And he mashed up my accumulator last night actually. But
wow,
I'm happy for him.
Wow. For me, that's why in boxing in general, you've got to roll the dice. And this is why I'm always harsh on people like Joyce. You're at your age. If you don't roll the dice, you just keep lingering around. Bro, another version of Christian Hamill could just clap you and you're out.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for opetaia, but for me, I'm excited for Lawrence Okoli. Lawrence can go in the ring and unify the division. Well, Lawrence is growing out of cruiserweight, so hopefully the next fight will be a unification bout, and then hopefully he schedules a fight with Makabu, and also Makabu more than likely won't fight Canelo anytime soon because Canelo's preoccupied.
Yeah, now he's got some vengeance. He's got Triple G, and he wants the Bivol fight, and he said he's going to fight him again at 175 because he says, I don't want no handicaps, no excuses, no draining excuses. He wants to so kudos to Canelo for that. So yeah, I see, and also as you said, I've seen some news with Riakporhe looking to be scheduled against Makabu. So if he does manage to beat Makabu, which I think Richard Riakporhe will do, especially with his new array of attacks now, then you've got a big collision course. Because I'm seeing these. Did you see that interview with Lawrence Okoli the other day on the Boxing Voice?
Yes.
So what's your thoughts on that? Because that was very interesting.
Wow. I get the impression that Lawrence is frustrated with 258 and frustrated with Eddie Hearn for not securing the unification belts. He doesn't. From what it sounds like he's made the decision to leave them. I don't know whether the opetaia fight may change his opinion on that. To be fair, if Lawrence leaves them, who is he going to go to? Because to my understanding, I think 258 are one of the best people to work with in terms of management companies.
Yeah.
And Eddie Hearn as well. Who is he going to go to? Boxer? And then what is he going to do afterwards? What, go bridgerweight and then go heavyweight?
Well, what's he going to... Someone... I said to because someone said to me, what's he going to do? And I said, wait, if he goes boxer, and then I don't know if, Shane and Barry's been in his ear to sign management deal with Cyclone, but that spells bad news if he does try to do that, because anybody who has done, they've not had a good past with fighters. Let's just say that. And I like Shane because Shane's my boy. I remember I even sparred Shane back in the day when we both used to box. Yeah. He was a good fighter, very good inside fighter. But yeah, I don't know if if he's looking to strike a management deal with them. I don't know if he's got some guys in Dubai because he does his raps about dealing with the Arabs and that. So I don't know if he's got a deal with them.
Honestly, he's better if he's leaving Eddie Hearn and he's leaving 258. He better have a better option, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's becoming you got to have a backward step. Is he got to go like Joseph Parker, go to boxer, and then get a lot of money and get the bag, but then you've got to have to go back to Eddie Hearn to schedule a fight with some of his top heavyweights.
Yeah, because the cruiserweight fight now with Riakporhe, that makes great financial sense. But then, as you said, if he's growing out of cruiserweight, and then he goes to heavyweight, then all he's got is Joseph Parker, but there's no belt. So then for your heavyweight stuff, you need to go back to Eddie. You can't even go to Al Heyman. You can't go to Golden Boy.
The mystery man, Al Heyman.
Yeah, you can't go to Golden Boy. You can't go
top rank. You can't
top rank. There's no one there.
Frank Warren. Well, nah.
No. Eddie has all the belts.
Eddie. Well,
apart from
Tyson Fury.
Yeah, but he's vacating, as he says. So that will. I don't know who will grab that, but somebody. Yeah, but yeah, if your best bet for Lawrence is to stay with Eddie, but if he wants to make the showdown, I don't know if Ben Shalom can strike a deal where he lets Richard fight on the zone for one fight. I don't know, but I would like to see that fight though.
I don't think that's possible, and the reason why I say I don't think it's possible is because I think that Sky Sports want to have a lot more influence on the whole show more so than DAZN do with Eddie. And I don't think that Sky Sports are the individuals to turn around and say, listen, like for one fight, which is probably their biggest fight on their platform, one of the biggest fights they could possibly make on their platform, to go onto DAZN, but then you come back afterwards. For Sky Sports, it doesn't make sense on their part, and I understand it. And I think that for Okoli, I think now it's just a matter of patience. You know, sometimes where you're hearing people who are going through like marriage problems, sometimes they may have that little hiccup, that little part of their journey, and then they may have to seek therapy. They may have to be a part of
marriage counselling.
Yeah, exactly. A 2-week break. And then they stay together for another 10, 20 years. I think this is probably the case.
Yeah.
With Okoli, Eddie, and AJ, which I don't understand, because AJ and 258, like, if there's anyone, I think there's a lot of boxers queuing up to join 258.
Of course.
Or selling, or, you know, handing in applications and hoping for the golden ticket. To leave that environment, it makes no, unless he started his own thing.
Yeah, but to me, that's not very good, because I was at his last fight against the Polish guy, where the Polish guy sold most of the tickets.
Was it Sislak? What was his name? I think it is Sislak.
Yeah, it might have been Sislak in the O2. And AJ came out of him with Israel Adesanya, who also won last night, against Gerard Konya.
I'm not UFC
Gerard
man, but
Konya.
yeah, I know he won last
Yeah,
night.
he won on points. Also, let me just get through the UFC. Alexandra Volkanovski beat Max Holloway on points. My boy Sean O'Malley, it was a no contest due to an eye-poke in round 2 against Pedro Munoz. But yeah, Israel Adesanya came out with him to that big Burna Boy tune. Don't move like a disco. With Kamara Usman in the video as well. So yeah, they've put in 258 put a lot behind him, because I imagine Anthony Joshua had the influence to get Israel to walk him out as well. You know, had the big flag, the whole Nigerian movement. Like, it seems 258, they're doing a lot to try and build Lawrence's profile, because he struggles to cross over for some reason.
Yeah. I don't know what it is though with Lawrence Okoli, because I think it's tough, because he's doing from the outside looking in. He's got like he raps. He's a cruiserweight champion from Nigeria.
He had a rap star girlfriend.
Yeah,
Miss Banks.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had the whole imagery. You know, he had it. Yeah, he was ticking a lot of boxes.
He's ticking a lot of boxes, but he wasn't on pay-per-view. But Dillian White was. And if I had to put Dillian White and tick a lot of his boxes compared to Lawrence Okoli, Dillian would probably tick a lot less.
Yeah,
So
marketability-wise, yeah.
Marketability-wise. So for me, I think it just boils down to the division that he's in. He's part of the cruiserweight division that isn't well marketed, because after him, Briedis was doing the Super Mario thing. Who's the other one? The other champion, I forgot his name. Makabu. He's just behind people, the back of people's minds. And then
everyone kind of remembers Makabu from getting like iced by Bellew as well. So,
exactly.
Yeah, no one really thinks of him. And also, Lawrence did move through the ranks quite fast, because he had that domestic dust up with Lawrence, with Isaac Chamberlain.
Yeah.
When they were both due for big things very early. So it kind of left him like, you ain't really got many guys to even get through now. Because remember, Lawrence, he elevated himself so quick. By the time guys like Chris Billum-Smith, Tommy McCarthy, Jack Massey, and them guys come from, Lawrence was already gone. He'd already left. They weren't even around yet. Richie Riakporhe came. He was but he was always behind Lawrence. So Lawrence kind of excelled so quickly because he blasted through Wadi Camacho. Then he went into the world title fight. So yeah, it kind of left him very limited options. in the cruiserweight division, which is not very attractive anyway.
I think if you are managing Lawrence's career, it's a very difficult decision you've got to make. His body's growing out of cruiserweight, and you've got to decide whether a unification bout between him, Opetaia, and then Makabu, if it's not going to be maybe in that order or reverse order for the next 2 fights, I think that he should just become unified and go up a weight because...
So who's got the WBA then?
The WBA is held by Opetaia.
No, that was IBF.
Someone's got unification, but I think... Makabu's got the WBC.
BC. Lawrence has got the WBO.
Yeah, it's Opetaia.
No, Opetaia won the WB... The IBF.
He's got the IBF and the WBA.
Oh, you got 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
I think it is, yeah, because someone's got to have unification, but unless that's vacant, which I doubt it is. So yeah, I think briedis was the unified champion.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, man. It's a very interesting time on that. But then we move on. Also, sorry, let's get through the Frank Warren card as well. Zolani Tete. So once again, shout out to Base the Kid. Sorry I gave you bad advice. He hollered me and said, what should he do on his accumulate? I told him Jason Cunningham on points. And Zolani Tete knocked out Jason Cunningham in the 4th round.
I saw that knockout.
What
a knockout.
That was big. And you know what it is? I did that I thought he was kind of coming to an end and I shouldn't do that. You know, I'm moving like a civilian, you know, because you lose once.
Moving like a civilian.
Yeah, moving like a civilian. You know, when a man loses once, you say, oh, he's done. Because he got knocked out by John Rio Casemiro.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago. So I'm thinking, yeah, he's tied up. But I'm not realizing, I'm forgetting Casemiro is actually a madman. So, yeah. And remember, I remember when Tete knocked out Paul Butler back in like 2015 at like Superfly on a Frank Warren card. That was for the IBF.
That was a while ago, yeah.
Years back. But now look, Paul Butler's now world champion again, and he's on course to fight the monster Inui, which I expect to be a 2-round job. But yeah, Zolani Tete, just wiped out Jason Cunningham. Easy work. That was a good knockout. So he's back in business.
That is a good knockout. I'd like to see him again on the Frank Warren show. Frank, I think he may be on his last legs. I think Frank is got a foot out the door because, some of these people that are appearing on his shows before that Tete fight, honest to God, I probably never heard of any of them.
Well, I put them on my accumulators because I knew they was quite easy, and they all came through. What was it? Let me get through them. Mark Chamberlain, Mickey Burke, and Henry Turner. They all won on points. And
I should be laughing, yeah. But I've never heard of somebody like that.
Yeah. So those guys, they won on points. They got the job done on you know what I mean?
Bruv, I swear.
Frankie.
Come on, man. Shoulder roll.
Also news, Callum Smith is due to fight Matthew Bauderleek. Matthew Bauderleek is the current European light heavyweight champion, but they're fighting for the WBC final eliminator.
Okay.
So the winner of that will fight the winner of Yard and Arthur Batavia, because that'll be one of the belts they'll have in it.
Yes.
Final eliminator. And with Matchroom won the purse bids of 1,069,000. So really 1 million, just 69 grand over $1 million. And they outbid a company called OPI 82. I imagine they're to do with Matthew Bauderleek, who's French. And they put in a bid of 675K. And then the deal split not with WBC rules, which we found out with the Tyson Fury thing. This must be an ongoing thing now. So 90% of the purse is 60-40 split to Callum Smith. Mm. And then the other 10% will go to the winner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's an incentive for them to win, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. For me, Is that mandatory going to be called straight afterwards, straight after the Yard Beterbiev fight? Is that mandatory?
I imagine so, because Callum Smith was due to fight. He was due to fight, or actually, he was called to fight Joe Smith Jr. for the WBO. Remember when Anthony Yard and Craig, which was said they were going to fly over last minute?
Oh, that's Callum Johnson.
No. But when Callum Johnson pulled out,
oh yeah,
Callum Smith got called in first.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, no. So before Callum Johnson got the fight, Callum Smith was meant to fight Joe Smith Jr. And then he said is either his wife's having a baby or marriage. One of them reasons. I forgot exactly what it was. Remind us in the comment section, guys. And then Callum Johnson, that's why he got plucked randomly, because he weren't mandatory. Because remember, Callum Smith just knocked out Castillo.
Yes, Lenin Castillo. I think that was at the AJ fight on the undercard.
Yeah, so that's how he got. That. He got called for the Joe Smith Jr. fight. Then Callum Johnson got it. He got COVID and or injured, and then that other guy got brought in. But so this will be for they'll fight the winner, because Anthony Yard, he was meant to fight Joe Smith Jr. for the WBO, but Joe Smith Jr. just got beat by Beterbiev. Yeah. So now Yard fights the Collector in Beterbiev, and then the winner of this, I imagine, will get called for the next person's mandatory defense of the WBC between Beterbiev and Yard.
Is Callum Smith? Well, I don't know anybody that will be ready for Beterbiev, but should Beterbiev beat Anthony Yard, would Callum Smith even be ready for that? Because Callum Smith's had one fight at light heavyweight.
Yeah,
one fight. I know he was a former world champion at 168, but the 175 division is stacked. That is one of the most stacked divisions, and probably anybody amongst the top 10 in 175 could probably become a world champion at 168, really and truly. And I don't necessarily think he's ready for world title shot yet. But what I'm thinking is that Callum Smith, I want to see him fight another light heavyweight, another two light heavyweights before that big world title shot, because he's a former world champion. He doesn't have to take the traditional route of going British, all of that, the whole 9 yards again before going up to world title. When he's going up to 175, he could just go in and go, who could I fight? I don't know, Lyndon Arthur, or fighting Craig Richards versus Callum Smith would be a good fight.
Yeah.
That would be a really good fight. And then, or even Callum Johnson or Dan Aziz. That's another good fight that he can jump in with.
Well, Dan Aziz is scheduled, from what I hear, is scheduled to fight Shakan Peters next. Yeah,
really?
On Boxer, Sky Sports.
Where have I missed this?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the exclusive.
Come on.
So so that's going to be coming soon. So
Shakan Peters.
Yeah.
Yo, big up Dan. Yeah.
So that's a good fight. I like that fight. That's so Callum Smith, providing he beats Bowder League. I don't see any other mandatories being called. Because Boatsi's got Bivol for the WBA. So that's the.
I don't think that's going to. WBA are some crooks, bruv. To be fair, they just may just hold off for that mandatory because they're hoping for Canelo Alvarez to do his part, come back for that, that world title. Because really and truly, that should be called next for Bivol. Because Bivol fought prior to Boatsi, he fought
Canelo.
Who?
Bivol fought Canelo.
Before he fought Canelo, he fought another gentleman back in last year.
The Russian guy.
Yeah. And then he fought Craig before that. And I don't think any of those two are mandatories.
No.
I don't think any of those two are mandatory. So really and truly, he should be having a mandatory next.
Well, I think Boatsi is the mandatory.
No, as in that should be called next. As in, After the Canelo fight, you won that belt. That should be his next scheduled fight. They should make that. Well, they should order that fight.
Yeah.
Really and truly. But I think that they're waiting for that Canelo payday. So I don't think that fight's going to be called anytime soon.
The reason why I do think it is because that October month, it seems everyone's booking themselves in. So Canelo's going to fight September for the Mexican holiday.
September 17th, yeah.
Yeah, versus Golovkin. So, and then Boazzi is due to fight Bivol October 22nd, around that October time.
Yeah.
And Yard is due to fight Beterbiev, I think October 22nd.
I think it's October 4th.
Oh, October 4th. Okay. And Boazzi is due to fight Bivol the 22nd. So Bivol, let's go with the champions. So Bivol, Beterbiev are both due to fight in October, and Canelo's going to fight September. So that way it leaves free reign for all them to get a fight in.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, oh, Canelo fights here. Canelo ain't going to be ready to fight you, so there's no point waiting. You might as well get a fight in between. Otherwise, you're gonna come off a bit of a layoff, while Canelo's, I imagine he's going to beat Triple G. But
that's not a foregone conclusion.
It's not, especially after Triple G Murata performance. People say, oh, he was getting hit and looked slow, but Murata is a good fighter, and he still got the job done.
Triple G didn't look slow and old. He looked ring rust.
Yeah.
That's what he appeared to be as.
And there's a big difference.
And you could tell because the first half of the fight, he looked like he had a slow build. It looked like it was slow to get in. And then once the oils were all tuned up, once he was ready to go, once he's proper warmed up, he was just flying after that. And I think that, because I think prior to that, I think he was out the ring for a considerable amount of time as well. Mm-hmm. So he looked ring rust to me against Canelo. And this is what I've been saying about Canelo for the last year or so. Last year, maybe a year and a half. Canelo Alvarez hasn't looked good, really and truly, for quite some time in the ring. He's been relying heavily on his power.
Yeah, one-trick ponying, basically. Just walking man down and blasting.
Absolutely. His performance against Bivol, that was, to be fair, that was really common if you think about it. And the telling signs was the Caleb Plant fight before that, where I had him losing on points before that knockout came.
So did I.
And
me and Craig Richards stayed up to watch that fight. Craig's like, no, he's hitting him. No, I'm like, he's missing. We was arguing, but obviously Craig got the last laugh because he knocked him out. So
yeah,
he can always say, see, he was up on the cards. I was like, oh, no, he wasn't, but
he was
got
down
the win.
On the
so yeah.
He was down on the cards for me then, and he lost a few rounds against Billy Joe Saunders. A couple rounds here and there. And I think
still had him up though, because Billy was he was getting a bit of a hiding. I gave Billy a couple of rounds where he managed to fiddle, but other than that, but still he was still relying on backing Billy up and whamming him to the body.
Exactly. And against Callum Smith before that, it was pretty much he fought Anthony Yildirim.
Oh, come on.
That just took care of him easily. Prior to that, Callum Smith was a very similar circumstance where he was over reliant on his power.
Yeah, and blasted his arm out.
And I always said that the person who beats Canelo Alvarez isn't. A lot of people say, yeah, you have the power, like you have to have the power to gain his respect. No, you don't. You need to take his punch.
Yeah.
Once you take his punch, it's like punching Luke Cage. Nothing. Literally, all he's got to do is punch you more times in the head, and he's won the fight. Some things are just so simple that you don't need to go into micro details of it. Canelo Alvarez, if you could take his punch, all you got to do after that is jab and move.
Yeah.
And then you've won the fight effectively.
Yeah.
So that's just effectively what Dimitri Bivol done. And for me, I don't think that Canelo has got a long career at 175. If you can't hurt his opponents, you ultimately have to throw more punches than them. And he hasn't really thrown a lot of punches in his fights since he was, pretty much since he was at super middleweight.
Yeah.
because the last time he's thrown a lot of punches was at
Triple G2?
It was the Triple G fight.
Yeah, number 2.
Exactly.
Because number 1, I had him lose that.
Absolutely. And so that fight in September against Triple G, for me, if Triple G could take his punch and throw more punches, and Canelo Alvarez wants to be that person who just over relies on power again, he could lose that fight. He could really lose that fight.
Yeah. But this is why you're signed to Trevor X Promotion, because you're about the skills that pay the bills. Because as we know, KG, he's in love with power. And this is why I know he's a big Canelo fan. He must be, because Canelo, as you said, relies too much on power. But that is not what's going to get the job done on someone like Triple G, who's not been down, amateur or pro.
Have you noticed as well, a lot of the fighters nowadays that rely on power, it catches up to them. Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Canelo Alvarez. A lot of these men that just overly rely on power, it catches up to you. You need to use some level of skill. You need to reinvent yourself. You need to stay behind that jab. Otherwise, there'll be a person that can take your power. What happens when someone takes your power?
Yeah, and that's why Beterbiev showed us a different side to himself when he showed some boxing skills on the back foot and showed some of his amateur pedigree, because everyone thought he was just like a come forward bulldozer type guy. And this is what is making him a formidable force and a young 37. Do you know what I'm saying? So you got to, as you said, you got to have more to your game than just a big knockout power. Lastly, Joseph Parker's looking for an opponent. Michael Hunter tweeted saying he's willing to fight him after Fury fight fell through. So we'll see how that one goes. But the main last topic I want to talk about is boxing has been removed off of the list of 2028 Los Angeles Olympics due to widespread corruption, allegedly. So Paris 2024 Olympics, the IBA, International Boxing Association, will not run its rules under the qualifying or competition events for Paris 2024. So what's your thoughts on boxing being taken away from the Olympics after this? Paris is going to be the last one, basically.
Do you know what? I think it's good. And the reason why I say it's good is for 2 reasons. One is if you do the crime, you've got to do the time. If you allow corruption in the sport of boxing, and now I'm going to have to be as honest as possible, there's a lot of people within boxing that know of these type of stuff that just turn a blind eye and keep it moving. So if you know of this type of stuff and you keep it moving, when it gets taken from the Olympics and the next generation of fighters where you're going to get your money from are affected from it, you have to blame yourself afterwards. Yeah. Really and truly. For me, boxing needs to clean up from the get-go. And the problem is historic, but it hasn't gone away. I remember reading up on something that even back in the day, Sonny Liston, he was a debt collector.
Yeah.
For the Lucchese family, one of the 5 families of New York.
Yeah, the mafia.
Basically for the mafia. There are fighters that get paid, or huge underdog fighters that get paid money to take dives in the sport of boxing. There's referees that get bribed to favor certain fighters over one another.
Yeah, officiate very heavily in one man's favor.
And so, really and truly, who's going to be affected by that? There's 2 people. One is 3 people: the promoter, the network, and the boxer. And those 3 parties combined haven't really and truly, if you think about it, haven't done enough to stamp out corruption in the sport of boxing. A lot of them love to talk about drug cheats, etc. But they're not talking about why drug cheats remaining in boxing. It's the sanctioning bodies that are allowing them to fight for belts. If you get popped dirty in football, do you know you're kicked out for a considerable amount of time? What was it, 6 to 9 months you're kicked out or something? If you're banned in boxing, you take a light vacation, a couple a couple, tequilas in Jamaica, come back a new man, and then you get, you get your scheduled bout again.
In Cancun. But yeah, man. But with the amateur thing as well, as you said, corruption's been going on for a long time. As we know, Roy Jones got stiffed he got skanked in Seoul Olympics in Korea. Floyd Mayweather, he got bumped in the Olympics. Joyce, many people feel he got done over in the finals versus Tony Yoka. Anthony Joshua, if you remember him in the opening heats versus Savon, Joshua, he didn't win that. Savon got bumped. I couldn't believe the scorecards after I'm like, this is a joke. Anybody go and watch. It's not Felix Savon, it's his nephew, Erislandy Savon, the same one who knocked out Lawrence Okoli. It's the same Savon.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
I forgot his name, but I know what fight you're talking about.
Yeah, it's Erislandy Savon. He got bumped against Anthony Joshua in the opening heats. Then some people say even in the finals against Camarelli, but I think that could have gone either way. Could have gone either way. And if on a thing on going either way, you give the home, the rubber agreement will usually go to the home man. But when it as a robbery, Erislandy Savon got robbed versus Anthony Joshua in the Olympics. So these things are, and there's been many other fighters as well. You see a few Uzbekistans versus Russians, and it's some funny decisions. You're like, come on, man. But one good thing as well, I don't know if someone like Fidel Castro or Cuba knew this was coming, because all of a sudden they've lifted the ban where now Cuban fighters are allowed to turn pro, which is a good thing, because now we're going to see an emergence of them flying in and doing some damage.
Absolutely.
Because that what's his name? Cruz?
Yes, I think that gold medalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be something.
He's going to be a problem. And you know what? Another benefit of them culling boxing from the Olympics is this. There's not a lot of other sports that, especially if you want to take it to, to go to the next level, that uses the Olympics as an amateur pedigree. In football, they don't look at amateur, or they don't look at Olympic footballers as their form of amateur, like a crop of talent. And so this promotes academies, or youth development of boxers amongst the promotional companies, because a lot of promotional companies, to my understanding, they don't promote or they don't look after fighters under the age of 18.
No,
they don't. So where are these under 18-year-olds if there's the Olympics? Are they just like floating around? Or is there going to be a lot more of a structured tournament, a structured way of amateur pedigree, so that they can go from point A to point B and then be promoted based on their talent and not their profile, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Because if Jake Paul can get a professional contract, I'm not being funny, pretty much any person can get a professional contract.
Yeah, there's this fight is turning over with, 3 amateur fights, 4 amateur fights, 10 amateur fights. And as I said, and one thing I do, as you say in sports, with America, they have they do base it on your sort of amateur pedigree, but they use it as they call it like college, innit? Like college football, college basketball, the NAACP, that kind of thing. That kind of thing. So there is the pedigree from that. So I think maybe if there's something in boxing like that, then, and it will allow either promoters or their representatives to go around and be more fighter scouts rather than just waiting on the result on the Commonwealth or the World Championships or the Olympics. And you actually go and watch these people rather than just going, oh, he won a medal. You don't know if he won it dubiously or if it was an easy running kind of to get that. Because that's why a lot of sometimes these promoters, they'll pick up these Olympians and these Olympians will end up losing on their debut because you didn't actually scout them. You just based it on the fact that you saw he won this. So it will promote more education for, not saying Eddie and Frank and Ben will be going scouting, but they'll have representatives go out and actually go around to some of these amateur tournaments or even club shows and actually go, let me keep an eye on this kid. Let me put him through some kind of scholarship.
Yeah. Is there even a scholarship?
Not in the UK. I don't think there is even in America for boxing. It's normally NBA, NFL, baseball, and I think ice hockey as well.
No, they do it for football. They do it for football, yeah. You get on some sort of scholarship program and then you work you up into the first team.
Okay,
yeah. There is some, and then you learn your GCSEs at the same time. There is some system there, and that will be good as well. That means you could then grow and start maybe a youth boxing tournament.
Yeah, and it's good, as you said, with that program where you said with the education, because then that would allow more fighters now to get more educated, and because we always hear of the horror stories when they finish, they blew all their money, they had no financial advice, no education, from the streets, and got kicked out of school. Maybe even if you do, you can still, even in America, you can get a GED and stuff like that. So it'd be good in the UK if the fighters can get some kind of education program system within their boxing, as a supplementary to their boxing within the educational system, which will allow them to, become better business people, have something to fall back on if they get injured or their career gets, doesn't go the way it does. Or even if it does go successfully, but you don't want to be a millionaire and be all successful. And then 10, 15 years time, you see them in, a casino, doing signed autographs days because they need a couple of bucks.
Exactly. And another thing, I've just noticed that when you're thinking about the Olympics, that happens once every 4 years.
Yeah.
Do you know how many fighters sit there in amateur boxing, just sitting and wait for the Olympics to turn around so that they can qualify for Team GB or wait for that moment? Like, the stars have to align for that to take place. If there is some sort of structure or tournament that young amateur boxers could take every year or that could compete in regularly, they don't have to wait for the Olympics.
Also, it's not even always based on your achievements, how you get into the Olympics. Because a prime example, I was telling somebody the other day. Now, I remember when I was boxing, the famous story of James DeGale and George Groves. I'll tell you where this all really stemmed from now. I'll give you the history breakdown. Now, James DeGale is my age. He was in my age group. He won the ABAs 2 years running at 18 and 19 years old. I remember in the first Northwest Div stage, he boxed Jamie Morrison from All Stars. Pugilist knows Jamie Morrison. Actually, FFA knows Jamie. Brian John, who runs the Haringey Box Cup, Terry Kelly. And Jamie gave James DeGale a standing count in the first round. James DeGale stopped him in the second. But yeah, he went on to win the ABAs. Then he won it the next year. George Groves was a couple of years younger than James DeGale, but they both boxed for Dell Youth. So they would have always sparred each other. So George Groves, he was not beating everybody or whatever in the junior ABAs. So his first year in the ABAs, when James was going for his third ABA title, he drew James DeGale in the Northwest Divs final because they couldn't have their coaches in the corner because they're both from the same club. George Groves beat James DeGale in the ABAs, won the ABAs that year and the next year. So really, he should have been the shoe-in foot, and he would have had to have done the Four Nations as well. He should have been the shoe-in foot to go to the Olympics. But the Team GB, due to politics, wouldn't send George Groves to any of the qualifying rounds. They'd always keep sending James DeGale, even though George beat him. And that way, James qualified and won the Olympics. That's why George is always going to have in his heart, that could have been me. I could have got the big push from the jump because I beat this guy, yet they still put him in the Olympics over me. But it's because, one, they have their favourites, and two, George Groves' style is not really conducive with the Olympic style computer scoring.
Yeah.
Style boxing was more of a blaster. Kind of like how Joshua Buatsi, where some people do say, yes, he got things handed to him and stuff, but his fighting is not really computer friendly. Hence, he had to stop a lot of people and knock out a lot of people in amateur boxing. Even in the Olympics, he was knocking out guys, which is very rare. Hence, Floyd Mayweather wanted to sign him to TMT Promotions.
Yeah.
So, So even as you said, if you're waiting 4 years, say George now, 4 years as a 16-year-old, he's thinking, all right, if I win these ABAs, 4 nations, all right, wow, I just beat James DeGale. Wow, I've just won the ABAs twice. I'm going to go. Then just get taken away from you. How disheartening. If you ain't built of a certain type of metal and material, you're going to think, F this. And it could deter you to do something else, or you might not. Yeah, it's as you said, there's pros and cons to it, because the Olympics does allow us to get to know and familiarize ourselves with the next crop of signees a lot earlier, because otherwise we'll get introduced to these the amateurs guys coming out of, say, the Commonwealths, European Championships, World Championships, but no one really watches those things. We all watch the Olympics, so we'll all know how these guys will be, like people like Fraser Clark, Ben Whittaker, the female signees, even Ramla Ali, Caroline Dubois. They're all household names already, because we've got to familiarize ourselves with them in the Olympics. But if we don't have them in the Olympics and stuff like that, even the Americans, like your Shakur Stevensons, your Keyshawn Davises, your
Devin Haney,
your Usyks,
even
Lomachenko, all these guys, you're not going to really, they're going to go under the radar, a lot of them. So they're not going to be promoted as quickly or get familiar. We'll be like, it'd be harder to promote them at first.
Do you know what? And this might sound crazy. Should we promote more so the competition and not the fighter? And what I mean by that is this. If we promote the competition, and as in promoting the world title, every fighter will be queuing up to fight for that world title and not drop it at any given opportunity, or you're mandated to fight that world title. I'm not feeling that world title. If we promote actually the competition, and I'll give you a classic example. Do you know how many footballers want to play in their Champions League final?
Yeah.
Champions League final. Yeah. Or the World Cup.
Or even the lower, what's the division below? The Championship.
The Championship.
And Division 1, when they get their chance at Wembley. You know, when there's like 2 matches in a day, they all want that chance. It don't matter if you're playing with the yellow football or the white football.
Exactly. And you know what? How a lot of the fans, really and truly, even the casuals will be like, that guy, he played for Manchester United. Like, you won't even know how some of the casual fans won't even know all the players, but the players are still paid well. The reason why the players are paid well is because the competition is well viewed, and the reason why the competition is well viewed is because they invested money into the whole competition. The reason why the boxers have to take it upon themselves and the promoters have to take it upon themselves to promote their fighters is because the WBC are not really doing a good job to do that. No, and also there's a lack of governance in boxing. A lack of governance means a lack of competition, and the cream doesn't always rise to the top. So how many fighters that you see going under the radar you never even heard of, but they come opetaia? Opetaia comes out of the blue,
and then you got a Wikipedia, his background,
and you got a box record. You be like,
he beat him, he fought him.
Yeah. Do you know how, you can't get away with this type of stuff in football because there's things called scouts. People look at your numbers and they will then send scouts over, look at you, watch you for how many times before they even want to sign you. And then you would have to produce the goods against top level competition, because every person in that criteria, which is aka the league, will all be worthy enough to be there in terms of their abilities. I guarantee you, everyone can list out their top 10 heavyweights. But if we have to be as honest as possible, there's probably about 10 other men in the world that we've never heard of that will probably bust into that top 10 heavyweights.
Very true. Yeah.
There's man that we never ever heard of that will bust into the top 10 heavyweights. So is it the top 10 heavyweights or the top 10 marketed?
Yeah. Because box rec is even different to reality. And then even that is about the push, the promotion, the marketability. But yeah, it's very true indeed.
Absolutely.
But yeah, guys, I think that's a good wrap up.
Come on.
And thank you so much for coming on, man.
Much love, bro.
Love, man. Yeah, man. Love for coming on. But yeah, guys, so that's another episode of The Neutral Corner. It's Danny Glover with OTC Off the Canvas. And remember, persistence beats resistance. You know where it is.
Come on.